As we move the program, I want you to understand something. First of all, I'm Wendell Anthony, President of Detroit Branch NAACP. I want to welcome all of you here. I want to say how pleased we are to be working in concert with members of the labor community, particularly the UAW, business and community organizations. There's so many folk that came together to put this 50th commemorative march on. And you can imagine anytime you do something of this magnitude, there are changes that must be made and situations that have to be considered. Everything does not flow from A to Z. Sometimes it flows from A to F and then from F to X, but it always flows. And thank God for the flow. And so we're here today in spite of the change that we've had to make. Some folk have had to make adjustments in their schedule, but the fact that you are here, the fact that we have defied the odds, the fact that in the midst of economic turmoil and social injustice and political repression, that the dream lives on in the people in the city of Detroit. Give us a hand. This is our city. This is our town. This is our state. We are here not just for a march. We're here to continue to do the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I know some of y'all weren't able to march in '63. Some of y'all didn't make it in '93. Some of you couldn't make it in 2003, but you made it in 2013. See, it's not where you were then, it's where you are now. And people ask, how many folk were going to show up, Reverend Anthony? How many people are you estimating? And see, the question behind that is for them to say, when you say, we're going to have X amount of numbers, and then they can come back and say, oh, you didn't make the numbers. Did your thing, was it a success? But we don't fall into that trap. We say more folk than we can count, more folk than you can count. Whoever show up, that's enough to say that we are not going to stand to be turned around today. But we defied the odds. Woodward Avenue was covered from sea to sea, from north to south, from east to west. And you are here in Hart Plaza in the city of Detroit on June the 23rd, 2013, to say that the dream lives on inside of you. Give yourselves another hand. And so we're here today not to end the march, but to begin a continuous movement. Because if we don't take the march and take the next steps to engage our communities, to bring down the violence, to do the voter mobilization and education and registration, if you don't take the march and the dream to correct some of the injustice in our own community, if you don't take the march to Lansing, if you don't take the march to DC, if you don't take the march to your own neighborhood, then marching don't mean nothing. And the only thing that the march does is to get you ready for the fight. And for those people who say that, you know, marching is outdated and we shouldn't be doing that, let me tell you a story. One time, hold the music, one time I was in South Africa and Bishop Desmond Tutu came to me and said, there was an occasion when a young boy came to his parents and said, Mama and Daddy, there's going to have to be a march in Soweto, and I want to go to the march. And the parents said, this was in the height of the movement to bring down apartheid. And the mother and father said, son, you can't go to the march because it's too dangerous for you to go. And so the boy went away disheartened. But he came back a second time. And he said, Mama and Daddy, I have to go to the march because we got to fight against apartheid. And the parents said a second time, boy, you cannot go. It is too dangerous. He came back a third time and said, Mother and Father, I must go to the march. And the mama looked at him and said, boy, why are you so insistent upon going to this march? Why are you so insistent upon doing this in Soweto? Don't you know that you could be killed? Don't you know that you could be arrested? And the boy looked at his parents and said, Mama and Daddy, if you and Daddy would have been marching yesterday, I would not have to be marching tomorrow. Don't let your children city of Detroit? Where were you when the state went to right to work? Where were you when they went and took away your voting rights? Where were you when they threw up all the folk from state aid? Where were you when they took away your educational system and you had no process or nothing to say? Where were you when they did all the dirt that folk are doing in your own neighborhood? Martin Luther King did not have a dream for us to turn it into a nightmare. We have to keep the dream alive. God bless you and welcome to Hart Plaza. It is my pleasure to call upon one of our key partners, because we wouldn't be here today. Labor was with us 60 years, 50 years ago. At that time it was Walter Reuther. We give thanks to C.L. Franklin, Tony Brown, Benjamin McFall. We give thanks to Reverend Albert B. Clay. We give thanks to Lillian Hatcher and to all of those individuals who laid the groundwork for this march in 1963. UAW was on point then. UAW is on point today. And I want to thank my friend and partner, Jimmy Settles, who is not here because of health reasons, but the president of the International UAW, who has never failed to step up and to be a part of what's going on in the community, is here. And we want to thank UAW Ford, UAW GM, UAW Chrysler, but we thank most of all their fearless leader, Mr. Bob King. Let's give Bob King a hand. Bob?
Thank you. Let me take a point of special privilege first. Reverend Anthony said it. I want to acknowledge the tremendous leadership of Vice President Jimmy Settles. He's been a partner all the way with Reverend Anthony in having the vision that this could happen today. So he was with us this morning and he just came out of the hospital. He had to go back home to rest. I ask for your prayers for Vice President Settles, for our brother, our ally in the fight for justice. He is a great leader in this city, in this state, in this country. I also want to acknowledge none of this happens without teamwork, and all the people worked on it. And I want to acknowledge my sisters and brothers on the UAW International Executive Board. When Jimmy made a call for us to jump in on this, our Vice President Joe Aston was the first to jump in, our Secretary Treasurer Dennis Williams, our Vice President General Holyfield, our Vice President Cindy Estrada, and honestly, most of all, I want to acknowledge our regional directors. Because without our regional directors, this is about building, this is a call to action today. It's about building new energy in a movement nationally. And I want Detroit folk and Michigan folk to know that there are UAW people from all over the United States of America today. Not only did Chuck Hall, our regional director in Region 1, Rory Gamble, our regional director in Region 1A, Gerald Kareem, our regional director in 1D, and Norwood Jewell, our regional director in 1C, all from Michigan. Not only are they there, Scotty Adams, Region 9, 9A, Julie Kushner sent buses here. Region 8, Gary Castile. Region 4, Ron McEnroy's here with buses all over this country. I don't want to forget anybody. Region 5, West Coast is here representing Gary Jones. All over this country, our leadership came together and members traveled hours and hours to be here. This is about building a new movement. President Obama was said could not win 18 months before the election. He only won because African Americans, Latino, labor, women, immigrant rights, LGBT community, all of us came together. Something I would like to remind our younger membership of, really all of our membership of. And I want you to say this with me. I'll say it once, but I want it in everybody's mouth and mind. In life, you get what you're willing to accept. Say it with me. In life, you get what you're willing to accept. I want to ask you, are you willing to accept in Michigan or anywhere else a governor coming in and replacing your elected officials? Will you accept emergency managers? No, we will not. Will you accept attacks on women's rights, women's health rights, women's reproductive rights? Will you accept that? No. Will you accept a defunding of our education system, K through 12, community colleges, making universities too expensive for working family kids? Will you accept that? Will you accept all these right-wing politicians who are trying to stop 11 million hard-working people in the United States from having a path to citizenship? Will you accept that? Sisters and brothers, the only way our words mean anything is if we make today not a commemoration, we make today a call to action. As Reverend Anthony says, as Reverend Jackson and Sharpton have said, we have to build a new movement. Every one of us has got to be willing to march, to register folks to vote, to turn out larger in 2013 and 2014 than we did in 2012. We are suffering the consequences of not voting in 2010 today across this country. I'm so inspired by the leaders in North Carolina who are facing amazing repression down there. Voter suppression, the attacks on workers' rights, trying to steal our collective bargaining. The only way we do this is by each of us accepting in ourselves that we are going to fight, we're going to march, we're going to rally, we're going to do nonviolent, civil direct action. We're going to do whatever we have to do to make a better world for our kids and our grandkids. That's the dream that Martin Luther King, he doesn't want us to remember him. Dr. King wants us to act in his spirit of love, in his spirit of determination, in his spirit of direct action. Are you willing to stand up and fight? Thank you very much.
We still have a mayor, the Honorable Mayor Dave Bing. Mayor Bing.
Thank you very much, Reverend Anthony. I want to say this to all of the people that are here. You hear about and you write about, you listen on the radio, you watch TV, you read the newspapers, and people say Detroit is dead.
Brother up front.
In the beginning of that march today, and as I look back to Woodward Avenue, I didn't have the opportunity in 1963 to march because I wasn't here. But when Reverend Anthony put this program together and called me, I knew I wanted to be a part of this. As we look back and people talk about so negatively about Detroit, when I look at all the people that are here, I know they are not. Everybody is not from Detroit. But once again, all of you have come out to be supportive of this city. As Reverend Anthony said and as Bob King said, your rights, our rights have been taken away from us. And we've got to make sure that we fight. We won't always agree, but we've got to make sure that we respect each other. The only way for us to start to bring our city back is to continue to do what you're doing today. And today cannot be the only day. Today cannot be the only day that you come out and fight and support. Our fight is going to be long. It's going to be hard. But because of people like you, we're going to win this fight. As I look at Detroit, I look at our future. I look at the generations before us. It's been said before I came up here that what we're doing today is not necessarily just for us. It's for our future generations. We are here to make a difference. We are going to bring this city back. Whether or not there's an emergency manager here or not, we're going to fight through it, and we're going to make sure that Detroit is well and alive. I came here in 1966, and Detroit was a hot city. Not because of the weather we have today. Detroit is still a hot city. And we're going to make sure that all of us work together to bring this city back, to bring it to the greatness that it was. It will never be 1.8 million people here again. But we can get another million people, and it's going to be the greatest million-person city in the country because of you. So let's not give up. Let's fight. Let's win this fight, and let's move on. Detroit, thank you. We are well and healthy.
appreciate you. Brothers and sisters, Dr. King was about love and justice and peace and order and decency. And when you violate that, you violate the spirit of the king. We don't always have to agree. But one of the things we can agree upon is that we got some serious issues. And it's going to take some serious people to deal with those issues. That's why we're here today. All races, all stations, city and suburb, educated, uneducated, with a job, no job, looking for a job, won't looking for a job. That's why we're here. So let's treat each other with some dignity and respect. Amen? Give everybody a hand. Everybody give everybody a hand. Whether you agree or not, it's all good. That's what this is about. 50 years later, we should not default on our freedom. 50 years later, they didn't have Jessica Care Moore. Now we got Jessica Care Moore, and still we rise. Miss Moore.
Peace, Detroit family. This is called the Heart of a Movement. It's dedicated to the women of the movement, because without women's voices in the movement, there is no movement. I can't hear you. Because without women's voices in the movement, there is no movement. I bear witness on this day that all women are not created equal. I'm certain I would not be alive if not for you, Elaine Brown. Not breathing and full of black power bloodlines tied to your birth. It was your refusal to not let us forget about Michael, Little B. Lewis, or other black magic children we pretend not to know when we watch the paid-off news from our suburban homes. The ones we forget to claim after they've been drafted into the prison industrial complex. It's complex to be a woman like you, our Minister of Defense, battling for the rights of women with your own comrades in the movement. You taught us responsibility, gave us more than a taste of power, a lifetime of organizing and teaching and loving and reminding this new generation that we must talk and read and write about this country's history simply because it exists, and they wouldn't if not for you. And when they couldn't kill you with church bombings, when you taught voter education classes, or with blasts through your living room, or daily threats against you and your family's lives, your feet remained planted when they walked in over 300 marches. When you discussed the possibility of dying with your husband while you were still young, Juanita Abernathy, we spoiled young women who speak with the power of your tongue. We study with the blood of our elders on our books and complain about the long walk to class. It seems that streets are not always named after legends or mothers or survivors of a Holocaust, for that matter. When you are the wife of the Reverend, your life is a sermon every Sunday, a story of sacrifice and struggle, a vision of Harriet, retracing steps of her journey from Selma to Montgomery in honor of sheroes whose names we would have never known. Sometimes it just takes one woman to end apartheid, build a monument, stop toxic dumping in our backyards. You understood that the SCLC was powerful, but the SCLC women was necessary for our rite of passage from girls into lawmakers. You, historical landmark Evelyn Laurie, visionary in our constant fight for freedom. You, one of our other mothers of black art, black consciousness. You gave us the strength to take over university presidents' offices, lie our bodies across basketball courts, to boycott racist newspapers, to demand classes closed on the Martin Luther King holiday, to give African studies apartments professors with tenure. You taught us education as frontline commitment. You, woman of SNCC, freed Huey. You, woman of exile and love. You were never afraid of being radical or being a full-time student of human rights. You sacred, you not tired, you destiny driven, you Kathleen Cleaver, you Evelyn Laurie, you Juanita Abernathy, you Elaine Brown, you Power Seeker, you Goddess, you Sojourner, you Mary McKeever, you Five-Star, you Nina Simone, you International, you Sister, you Mama Africa, you Truth Teller, you Revolutionary, you Joan Watson, you Viola, you Rosa Parks, you Merle Evans, you Queen of Soul, you Aretha, you Maya, you mothers, you who refuse to bury your sons or surrender your daughters, you the brilliance, you teachers, you institution builders, you drummers, you peacemakers, you walkers, you organizers. You not supposed to be here, woman, you not supposed to be here, you bulletproof, you panther, you wife, you breathing, you bomb shelter, you ancestor, you pioneer, you frontline Fatima, half Amazon, half amazing. You represent the Project Monifa, the double judge champion, hopscotch and voodoo candy lady, the tree limb traffic stopper, the bubblegum popper, the pigtail astronomer, everybody's baby mama, the storm calmer, a father's daughter, the birth of blues, queen of queens, you goddesses, you warriors. I'm certain none of us would be here if not for you.
We fired up, we Joan Watson. I'm so glad to stand up for the women. Now, we love the men. I declare we do. We love our brothers, but I'm standing for the women. I'm standing, and I'm blessed to be here because at 12 years old, my grandmother brought me to this march 50 years ago. And for me to be standing here with my granddaughter Jendai at 14 years old, stand up, baby. For me to be here with my two daughters is a blessing from heaven. Praise God. I stand for women like Dr. Dorothy Irene Height, who was on the committee for the 63 March on Washington, but was not allowed to speak. No women spoke. Praise God for women speaking today, because women are always at least half the attendance, always holding up half the staff. Praise God for women. So I'm standing for the Honorable Irma Henderson. I'm standing for the Honorable Mary M. Happy. I'm standing for Mother Waters. I'm standing for Mother Rosa Parks. I'm standing to declare that women like Ida B. Wells, women like Ella Bay, women who keep the churches going, who keep every civil organization going, women who are always the workhorses in organizations. Women deserve to be respected, and we demand an end to the injustice in this state. We demand an end to emergency management. We're not beating around the bush. We're not putting our finger up in the air and seeing which way the wind is going. We say you cannot take away our constitutional rights and ask us to accept it. It's not okay that you don't have control of your vote. It's not okay that you don't have control of your streets. It's not okay that you're not making any money. You ought to own something and not make everybody else rich. We need to up the ante to economic empowerment. As we march, as we rally, let's hear from some women who will help take us to the mountaintop. Women, let me hear you. Women, let me hear you. Women, let me hear you. Yvonne White is president of the Michigan State Conference of NAACP. Please welcome Yvonne White.
Good afternoon. And still we rise. My name is Yvonne White, the first elected woman of the NAACP for the state of Michigan in 65 years. To our honorable chairman of the board, Ms. Rosalind Watt, to our national president, Benjamin Todd Jealous, to our leader, my president, the baddest, biggest, boldest president of the NAACP, the Reverend Dr. Wendell Anthony, the Detroit branch. I am so proud and honored to be here before you today. As we march down Woodward, I could hear the voices of our ancestors crying out, saying, well done. That's right. Well done, Detroit. You've done a wonderful job. This is our town. I can hear Martin. The dream is being realized right here today. I can hear the voices of Rosa saying, continue to push forward. Continue to live this dream. This is your city, Detroit. Do not let anybody, no one, take this town from you. We are Detroit. Who are we? Detroit. Who are we? Detroit. Who are we? Detroit. We are Detroit, and we will never let anybody forget it. God bless you. Continue to take your souls to the polls and vote like your life depends on it. That is your power. That is your source. God bless you, Detroit. And still we rise.
Praise God. I want you to just be still and get ready to receive a daughter of a martyr for freedom. You all know the name Viola Yuzo, Detroiter, who got impacted by the movement at the 63 march. Went south to register people to vote and was impacted by evil. Her daughter, her baby, want you to receive her. Sally Yuzo Prado is here representing the family of Viola Yuzo. Give her thunderous applause.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here. I guess I'll just tell you my mom's story. I don't know quite where to start. She was a member of the Detroit NAACP since 1943, and we were taught very differently in our house. You know, after she was killed in Alabama, my first day back to school, neighbors lined the streets throwing stones at me, calling me an N-lover's baby. I didn't know what that was, so I went home crying, asking my dad what an N-lover was. And, you know, that's the kind of household we grew up in. We didn't say that word. And she left. She was supposed to go with a group of students from Wayne State. And on the day they were ready to leave, everybody else decided they were too afraid. Well, Mom had already put 2 garbage bags in her back seat of her clothes, and she knew she had to leave from school because if she would have went home, Dad would have talked her out of it. So she called my dad from school and said, "I'm going south." And he tried to tell her how dangerous. She knew. She was raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee in segregation, so she wasn't going into it blindly. But she had to do this, and I really believe it was her destiny, that she was put on this earth to do this. And so the march was a success. She called us every night. We were all happy because she was coming home. And she had called us, I guess, about 6 o'clock on March 25th, talked to all of us. And my dad told her, "Well, you're still not out of the woods yet, be careful." And she was killed 2 hours later. And what I'd like to say is that not only was it 3 Ku Klux Klansmen in the car that killed her, there was also a paid FBI informant in that car that was armed and did nothing to prevent her murder. So, you know, we all have to fight against these injustices, and people think they've changed, and there's so much hatred coming out right now, you know, with the presidential elections. It hasn't. We've made huge accomplishments, but it's still got a long way to go. And just keep fighting, and remember that the movement was nonviolent, and that's what worked. And so I just want to make a call to put the guns down in Detroit. And that's it. God bless you all. Thank you.
Dean Johnson Benson, Wayne State University Law School, is a freedom fighter, an activist, an educator, a voting rights advocate par excellence. Please welcome Dean Johnson Benson.
It's probably one of the greatest honors I could ever imagine to meet and follow the daughter of my hero, Viola Yuzo. And as we reflect on today, we can't remember that 48 years ago there was a march in Selma, Alabama, and that march hurt a lot of people sacrificed their lives, but there was a bill that came out of that march called the Voting Rights Act that stood to protect the right of every citizen in this country. And the Supreme Court this coming week may rule and overturn parts of that critical civil rights law. My friends, that's all we need to know to realize that our fight is far from over, and that we have much work that is yet to be done to ensure that every voice is heard, and that every voice that is silenced, every vote that is denied, and every life that is sacrificed in the name of our democracy is not lost in vain. We must ensure, as we reflect on all of the terrible policies and injustices that we've heard about today, that we don't forget the one simple hope and principle that guides our democracy. And that is this: the only thing The only thing that can stop a politician with a bad vote from enacting a bad policy is a citizen with a vote. So let us not forget in every election to make our voice heard and stand with those who've come before us to protect our voice, protect our vote, and ensure that we march on until freedom and victory is won. Thank you very much.